Hi, welcome. My name is Charlotte. I love colorful and sparkly makeup. However, as I've mentioned in a recent video, I am currently having to wear a little bit more neutral makeup than I would normally prefer. And that's because I recently started a new job. I also went from being a contractor to a W-2 employee, which means I need to be on a more regular schedule, a little bit closer to 9 to 5. I need to be on meetings a little bit more often. And although I'm still working from home, this does mean that, I more often have to be in professional makeup, and I also just have to streamline my process of getting ready, not becoming overwhelmed and wasting the time that I do have to put on makeup in the morning. I've been in my new position on my new schedule for 2 weeks now, and what I have decided I want to do is create a couple of custom palettes to have like a little capsule collection of eyeshadows that I can incorporate into neutral looks. Because when I say neutral looks, I don't always mean neutral eyeshadows. I really love sparkly toppers that have some kind of iridescent shift. And I feel totally comfortable, in this environment at the company I'm with. I do feel comfortable hopping on meetings with a blue iridescent over a brown base, something like that. So I'm going to assemble two BYOPs, one of mattes and one of shimmers. And the shimmers are going to be a mix of both, spicy neutrals as well as some sparkly toppers. And then the mattes are just going to be some basic brownish building block shades. And I think that this will really help me in the mornings to just sort of home in on a look that's going to be functional for the day, but that's still going to let me have a little bit of fun with makeup. I'm thinking that I will start with these two palettes, this smaller one being for mattes, and then this slightly larger one for shimmers. Like I said, I do want to keep it a little bit curated, but I'm going to start with the mattes. I think that those will be some easier decisions. So these are my go-to brand transition shades. They're all from the Nearly Natural palette from Glaminatrix. This is the shade Nothing to See. It's a cool brown taupe. This is the shade Simplicity. It's a warm brown. And then this is the shade Barely There. It is more of a rosy toned brown transition. And I want to compare it quickly against this shade from the Glamlite Chocolate Martini palette, which is called Bittersweet. Bittersweet is definitely deeper, but I do think they have similar undertones. I think I'm gonna go with Bittersweet, and it's like a little bit more versatile because of that slightly deeper tone. And then from that same palette, I also know I want to pull out this shade Disrobe, which is, just a good deepening, a cool tone deepening shade. I want a dark warm toned shade. This is also from Chocolate Martini. Okay, this is a little bit plummy. It's called Dark Chocolate, but yeah, that's a good one. I'll pull that out too. I'm gonna have plenty of room in this palette because I'm almost, basically almost done. Yeah, for like a warm toned deepening shade, honestly, I think most of the deepening shades I have lean a little bit cooler. Whoops. Yeah, I'm gonna pull this one out from the Earthy palette from Beauty Bay. This is Baked. It's not super deep, but it's usually deep enough for what I'm going for. And now I just want a couple of like more reddish / peachy neutrals. So I'm going to pull out this guy, Vintage Mulberry from Lisa Eldridge. And then I think I'm just going to go for this shade Syrup from the Glamlite Chocolate Martini palette. This is like more of a warm toned peachy, like terracotta kind of shade. And that makes a good counterpart for Vintage Mulberry. Although I do think, Vintage Mulberry does sheer out enough that you can almost like get away without like a lighter shade to pair with it. So I think actually That's convinced me. I don't think I need syrup, but I am going to grab for Irish Cream. This is also from the Glamlite Chocolate Martini palette. Oh my god, I feel so clumsy today. I think that this will sometimes be nice for blending out vintage mulberry. So all I'm gonna do to rearrange this is just swap these guys out. So now I kind of have my cool browns, my warm browns, my rosy browns, and then my peachy clay colors. And that is perfectly sufficient for my matte palette. I lied. I am actually going to add the shade Snow from Beauty Bay. This is just a cream shade. It's from their Earthy palette. And I do use that like as sort of like highlight shade for my brow bone. I can use it to blend out other shades, but mainly it's just to have it accessible for those moments when I want it for my brow bone. So now moving on to shimmers, I think what I'm gonna do is just go through, pull out a long list, and then narrow it down after that. This is the remains of my dupe of like the Odin's Eye Stone and Rock and Jewels and Gems palette. And honestly, this is a really good neutral adjacent palette. So yeah, I really should put that back together. I wasn't really done playing around with that one. This is giving such fairy vibes. I love seeing these shadows all together. I've been really meaning to bust out the shade Supersonic from Looxi. It's sort of like got a brown to blue vibe, but there's something super purple about it. I'm going to include that. I'm also definitely going to include Drip from Looxi. I also really want to include this shade, what is this called? Extra Lit from the Chocolate Martini palette. Just a really lovely dark, warm pink. Mystic Moonpie from Devinah. Angel Wings from Looxi, a no-brainer. I recently hit pan on this one. I think I'm also going to keep this shade Social Butterfly from Looxi. It's like a rose gold kind of gold duochrome. I really don't wear this often, so it's coded in my brain as like a boring neutral, but that's exactly what I'm looking for. And it is a beautiful shade. Like, it's not really a boring neutral, it's a beautiful neutral. I definitely want to include one of my blue iridescent toppers from Looxi. So this is Cookie Dough. It's more of like an icy blue. And then this is Salted Caramel, which is a little bit more teal, but they're super, super similar. I think I'm gonna go with Salted Caramel. It's like a little bit more neutral friendly. I wanna compare Tombock from Glam Shop with the shade Vengeful Spirit from the Glamlite GhostFace palette. So this is Tombock. And beside it is Vengeful Spirit. These are kind of like connected in my mind. I think of them as being very similar. And I think it prevents me from using either of them sometimes. Tombock has like a duochromatic gold shift that Vengeful Spirit doesn't have. But then again, I'm going to be having like a lot of toppers in this palette, so maybe I'd be better off with Vengeful Spirit because it's more versatile. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with Vengeful Spirit. I'm always really inspired by this shade Splash from Looxi, but I want to compare it with some other things. Splash has like a really sheer purplish, grayish kind of base, and it flips to like a gold green as well as a bright green. I'm not sure if you're gonna be getting all of them here. Somehow it's like stuck in my head as like a teal. I think it's just maybe the combination of all these different shifts kind of codes it as teal in my brain. But I do often use this as a topper for like bluish teal looks. I want to compare that with the shade Ray from the Beauty Bay Earthy palette, which has, okay, like a warmer green shift. So they are different. I want to also add Drip from Looxi, which is brown over a green base. And the cool thing about Drip is that it does shift to like both of those greens. So it shifts to the golden yellow green, and it also shifts to like that bright grass green. It's a very similar shimmer pigment to whatever is in Splash, I think. And so I want to compare these also to Chilled. This is from the Glamlite Dirty Martini palette. And it's over more of a plummy base, pink, mauvey, red, whatever you want to call that. So very different, okay. But it does have like a slight green shimmer as well. And okay, finally, I want to just swatch this shade Extra Lit. Given that I am combining like toppers with neutral shades in this palette, I don't want to include like redundancies that are like, you know, duochromes that I could get by layering other shades in the palette. So I was wondering if like by layering this and this, I would get the same effect as this. And I'm thinking that's probably true. So I might leave out Chilled for that reason. The thing about those shades though, even if they are technically redundant in your collection, sometimes you wouldn't think to pair these things, and it's kind of inspiring to have those duochromes kind of make the combination for you. I also ordered a bunch of Looxi shades during their recent sale, and I haven't really come to grips with all of them yet, but I just quickly want to swatch, what is this one called? Oh yeah, Cookies and Cream, which feels similar in that it's got like, it's like an iridescent and it's got like a golden green kind of sparkle going on. Oh, weird. It's actually looking super minty next to all of these warm greens. For some reason I was thinking that was going to be very similar to like Splash. I don't know if you can see there, it looks pretty cool toned in comparison, maybe more almost like salted caramel. Okay, that's beautiful. I was thinking maybe of not keeping that shade because I thought it was redundant in my collection, but I'm intrigued. Maybe I will include that in the palette just to test it out a little bit. So that's Cookies and Cream. And then I think I am going to include Splash, and I am going to include Ray, I think. I have 4 slots left. This shade Adorbs is like one of my favorite rose gold shades. It's definitely, okay, it's like a little more coppery and orange than Extra Lit is, but overall they're quite similar, these two. They're quite similar, and I don't think I need both of them in the palette, so I'm not gonna put in Adorbs. Now I have 4 slots left and 5 shadows still in the running. One of the Looxi shades I got recently is this kind of iridescent-y purple called Now and Maybe Later. I didn't really have a lot of like sheer purples in my collection. I feel like it's common to find iridescent blues that shift purple, but sometimes you can't control what comes up. Like for example, when you do the inner corner, I find that all of the shades I have like that, they are blue in direct light, so I didn't really have anything that was like dominant purple. And I don't even know if you're actually getting the purple there in the camera. It's looking a little bit blue, but this is shifting between like a warm pinky purple and a kind of more indigo purple. I also got the shade Jelly, which is a warmish purple base with a blue shimmer. Like all the shades in my favorite Looxi formula, they have like this similar sheerness. They can be built up or just worn pretty sheer over the skin. Okay, I think jelly is not really a neutral for the purposes of this palette, so I'm gonna kick that one out. And I am going to keep in Now and Maybe Later as a purple topper. I'm gonna compare this to Mirror Gleam from the Glamlite GhostFace palette, which is like kind of a purple shimmer on top of a gray-green base. That base is like a lot more prominent actually than I tend to remember. So I think this is actually not gonna be neutral enough for the palette. I also pulled out this silver shade from the Glamlite GhostFace palette. It's called Midnight Robe. I wanted to see kind of how sheerable this is. I think I've worn this as a topper before, or like an inner corner shade. I mean, really it does have a gray base, like it is kind of more of a true metallic silver, but I think it can fit the bill in this palette. This is Champagne Punch from Looxi. It's a new shade to my collection. It feels very dry compared to the other Looxi shadows I own. Yeah, I'm not sure that this is a keeper really. It's got like a slightly rose gold base, but really it's just like a golden sheen. It's not even really sparkly. I think honestly I'm probably gonna be decluttering this one. There was another one I didn't swatch, or I didn't pull out because I thought it was similar to that. It's the shade Nectar. Oh, it's weird. Nectar also feels like a little more dry, a little more sheeny than sparkly as well. Like, I don't know, they both just have like a heaviness to them that my favorite Looxi shades don't have. I don't know if that makes sense. Huh, okay, well, I didn't expect to have 2 extra slots in the palette. I think I do want an iridescent gold. That's sort of what I was hoping those other Looxi shades would be, but I know just the shade I want for that. And it's this one. This is Vanilla Vodka from the Glamlite Chocolate Martini palette. Just a pretty straight iridescent yellow gold. Now, I'm wondering if maybe for that last slot, I should pull in like one of my neutral adjacent Clionadh shades. This one is getting so squashed in this palette. You can see how high it was in the pan initially because it's been crushed inside my palette. This is Burnish Lite. I also have the shade Ferric. Let's swatch these out. So Burnish Lite is one of the, I guess it's one of the light jeweled iridescent multichromes, so it's quite an intense shift. And it goes from like bright green to orange and like gold. It's pushing the term neutral for sure, but I do tend to forget about this shade. And then here's Ferric. I don't know, I feel like it doesn't really fit the vibe of the palette, but I'm just gonna go out on a limb and put Burnish Lite in this palette. Although I do want to put it down here somewhere with some of these richer colors. All right, here's my little palette. So I will go ahead and swatch. I know this palette looks a little bit unhinged without mattes, especially because most of the shadows are so sheer, but these are just my favorite kinds of eyeshadows. Sparkly, sheer, versatile, layerable. They're just gorgeous. So here we have Looxi Splash, Beauty Bay Ray, Looxi Now and Maybe Later, Glamlite Vanilla Vodka, Devinah Mystic Moonpie, Looxi Angel Wings, Looxi Salted Caramel, Looxi Cookies and Cream, Glamlite Vengeful Spirit, Glamlite Midnight Robe, Looxi Supersonic, Looxi Drip, Glamlite Extra Lit, Clionadh Burnish Light, and Looxi Social Butterfly. Just so you know, I haven't built these up to full opacity because that's not really how I wear or think of them. But like, for example, for angel wings, like you can kind of see that there is a base on this shadow, even though I kind of tend to use it very sheer. Same with Mystic Moonpie here. When the swatches are a little bit more sheer, you can see how sparkly they are. When they're a little bit more built up, you can see them sort of more true to color. So these are my little neutral adjacent palettes for work. It's currently Sunday afternoon and I'm not looking forward to tomorrow being Monday, but this helps. You know, I'm excited to see what I can create with these palettes and see how time efficient I can be while creating those looks. Thank you so much for watching. If you're interested in this kind of content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and like this video before you go. It really helps and it gives me a little morale boost as well. Again, my content has been like super irregular recently and I don't know how regular it will be going forward, but I have lots of ideas. Just because you don't see me posting on the platform doesn't mean I'm planning to go away or anything like that. I'm just trying to balance my schedule and figure out my time management and how I should be prioritizing different projects and different aspects of my life. So no big deal. Of course, I guess these are just sort of like the main questions of life. But I do hope to see you back here soon for another video. So till then, bye!